into the game. Wonderful ball from Vinicius to Kylian Mbappé.
They said he wasn't ready for the Bernabéu. They said the white shirt would expose him. And for the first 2 months of the 2024 to 2025 season, it looked like they were right. When Kylian Mbappé finally signed for Real Madrid in the summer of 2024, the football world didn't celebrate a dream fulfilled. They waited, skeptical, arms crossed. Because unlike his arrival at PSG as a teenage phenomenon, this time the questions were louder than the applause. Can he function without being the main man? Does he have the tactical discipline for Ancelotti's system? Is he just a pace merchant who dominated League One farmers? The critics had their narrative ready, and Mbappe's early performances seemed written specifically to prove them right. September 17th, 2024, Anfield, Champions League, Real Madrid versus Liverpool. Mbappé, playing as the central striker, was anonymous. He missed a penalty. He missed 2 one-on-ones. He was caught offside 8 times. 8. The kind of performance that doesn't just raise questions, it provides answers. And the answer pundits gave was brutal. He doesn't fit. Mbappé looks lost. He's not Benzema. He doesn't have the link-up play, the hold-up ability, the spatial awareness to play as a 9 for Madrid. The stats were damning. Through his first 7 La Liga matches, Mbappé had just 5 goals. Respectable for most players, but for someone who averaged over a goal per game at PSG, it felt like failure. His conversion rate sat at 14%, well below his career average of 22%. His pressing actions per 90 minutes dropped to 6.8 compared to Benzema's 11.2 in his final season. But the real problem wasn't effort. It wasn't even finishing. The problem was positional. October 26th, 2024. El Clasico at the Bernabéu, Barcelona 4, Real Madrid 0. Mbappé was caught offside 6 times, not because of poor timing, but because of spatial confusion. He was occupying zones that overlapped with Vinicius Jr., drifting left when he should have stayed central, making runs when he should have been creating space for others. After the match, the internet erupted. Worst Madrid signing since Hazard. He's mentally weak. The pressure is too much. Even Carlo Ancelotti, in his measured way, admitted, "We need to find the best position for Kylian." It's a process. The weeks that followed became a cycle of frustration. A good performance against a mid-table side, followed by invisibility in a marquee match. A goal that sparked hope, then 3 games caught offside more than he touched the ball in dangerous areas. Mbappe's body language told the story. Shoulders slumped, hands on hips, the look of a player fighting a system that didn't understand him. By December, the narrative had hardened into concrete. Analysts dissected every touch. Former players questioned his mentality. Social media turned his name into a punchline. The offside trap became his personal nightmare, a tactical straitjacket he couldn't escape no matter how hard he tried. Madrid kept winning games, because they're Real Madrid, but it felt hollow. The team was functioning despite Mbappé, not because of him, and everyone knew it. The pundits had their verdict. Mbappé wasn't just struggling, he was failing. The dream move had become a cautionary tale about fitting superstars into systems not built for them. But that verdict was incomplete, because it ignored one critical question. Was this really about Mbappé? Or was it about something Madrid had lost? Something they hadn't properly replaced, and a player being asked to fill shoes that were never his size to begin with? Here's what the critics missed in their rush to bury Mbappé. Here's what the hot takes and the viral compilations and the worst signing ever narratives conveniently ignored. To understand why Mbappé struggled, you need to understand what Real Madrid lost when Karim Benzema left. Benzema wasn't just a striker. He was a false 9 before the term became trendy, a spatial conductor who dropped deep, dragged defenders out of position, and created corridors for Vinicius to explode into. His heat maps from the 2021-22 Champions League winning season show something fascinating. He spent more time in the attacking midfield zone than in the penalty box. That role required something specific: positional intelligence, selfless movement, and the ability to receive passes under pressure with your back to goal. Skills that took Benzema years at Madrid to master. Skills that became his signature, and skills that weren't in Mbappe's natural toolkit. Because Mbappé, for all his genius, is a different profile entirely. Let's rewind. Let's remember who this player actually is when the system fits him. Russia, 2018. A 19-year-old Kylian Mbappé tears through Argentina's defense in the World Cup round of 16. 2 goals, blistering pace, movements that start wide left and cut inside like a knife through silk. France wins the tournament, and Mbappé announces himself as football's future. Qatar, 2022. The final, Mbappé scores a hat-trick against Argentina. 3 goals in a World Cup final, only the second player in history to do it. He drags France back from 2-0 down, from 3-2 down, forcing penalties through sheer individual brilliance. They lose on penalties, but Mbappé finishes the tournament with the Golden Boot. 8 goals. The world watches in awe. Between those 2 World Cups, he terrorized Europe with PSG. In his final season in Paris, 2022 to 2023, Mbappé scored 41 goals in 43 games. 41. He became PSG's all-time top scorer at just 24 years old, surpassing Edinson Cavani's record. His partnership with Neymar and Messi, chaotic as it sometimes was, produced moments of devastating beauty. Against Barcelona in the Champions League, against Bayern Munich, against any defense that dared give him space. And here's the key detail that Madrid's system ignored. Opta data from his final PSG season shows that 68% of his goals came from movement starting on the left flank, with only 19% originating from a central striker position. 68% from the left. He was never a number 9. He was a left winger with the freedom to drift, cut inside, and attack space in behind. His best attribute has always been his acceleration into channels, not his hold-up play in congested areas. For France, it was the same story. Didier Deschamps never asked him to play with his back to goal. He played him as a left forward in a system that allowed him to run at defenders, to exploit transitions, to be Mbappé. And in that role, he delivered on the biggest stages imaginable. So when Madrid installed him as the direct Benzema replacement, playing as a lone 9, they weren't just asking him to adapt. They were asking him to master a game he'd never really played. They signed a Ferrari and tried to use it as a truck. The tactical clash was obvious in the data. Through October 2024, Mbappé's average position was 8.2 on the positional map, central striker territory. But his touch map told a different story. He drifted left 61% of the time. He was nominally a striker, but his instincts kept pulling him wide, directly into Vinicius's zones, and that created chaos. When both players occupied the left half space, Madrid's attacking width collapsed. Fullbacks had no room to overlap. Passing lanes clogged. Bellingham, who had thrived the previous season as a late-arriving goal threat, found himself deeper, trying to compensate for the lack of a true pivot striker. The offside problem? That wasn't laziness, that wasn't a lack of intelligence, it was a striker trying to play like a winger. Mbappé's runs were timed for through balls and behind, the kind of passes he'd receive at PSG when Verratti or Messi would slip him through. But Madrid's build-up under Ancelotti was slower, more methodical, designed for a striker who checks to the ball first, then spins. Different rhythm, different game, different planet. But here's where the story gets interesting, because buried in those early struggles, beneath the offside flags and the missed chances and the social media pile-on, were glimpses of adaptation. November 2024, against Osasuna at home, Ancelotti made a subtle shift. He stopped asking Mbappé to play with his back to goal and instead gave him permission to start wider, almost as a left-sided forward in a 4-4-2 shape when defending, but with freedom to roam centrally when Madrid had possession. The result? 2 goals, both from positions he'd naturally find at PSG. One cutting inside from the left, exactly like his World Cup goals. One arriving late into the box after starting from a deeper position, using his acceleration the way it was meant to be used. It wasn't perfect. The system still felt rigid, but it was proof of concept. The problem wasn't the player, it was the role. Mid-November brought another adjustment. Ancelotti sat down with his coaching staff and made a decision that would shift the trajectory of Madrid's season. They stopped trying to replace Benzema. Instead, they started rebuilding the system around Mbappé's strengths. The adjustment was tactical, but also philosophical. Vinicius would stay wider on the left, holding his position rather than drifting inside. Mbappé would operate as a free 9, a hybrid role that allowed him to drop, drift, but crucially, attack the penalty box from movement rather than static positioning. Bellingham's role changed too. He pushed higher again, becoming the late runner Mbappé used to combine with for France. Valverde tucked in more centrally from the right, providing defensive balance and allowing Madrid to overload the left side in transitions without losing shape. On paper, it looked like a subtle tweak. On the pitch, it started to unlock something. December 18th, 2024. Madrid versus Pachuca in the Intercontinental Cup final. Mbappé scored, but more importantly, his movement was different. He started in a central position, yes, but his first touch of the move came from a drop into the left half space, receiving the ball on the turn, then driving into the channel Vinicius had vacated by staying wide. That single sequence illustrated the evolution. He wasn't playing AS Benzema, he was playing as Mbappé in a system that finally recognized who Mbappé actually is. The stats started to shift. From December onward, his average position moved slightly left, from 8.2 to 7.8 on the positional grid, but his goal contribution spiked. His offsides per game dropped from 4.1 to 1.7. His conversion rate climbed back to 19%, approaching his PSG levels. But the most telling number? His combination play with Vinicius. Through October, they completed just 3.2 passes to each other per 90 minutes, one of the lowest attacker-to-attacker rates in La Liga. By January 2025, that number had jumped to 7.8. They weren't just coexisting anymore. They were learning to thrive together. By the end of the 2024-25 season, Mbappé had 25 goals across all competitions. Not disastrous, not world-class by his standards, but respectable, and crucially, trending upward. Ancelotti had tried to fix it. He'd made adjustments. There were signs of life, flashes of the player who dominated World Cups and terrorized League One. But the fixes were tactical band-aids on a structural problem. Madrid's system was still built on Ancelotti's pragmatic principles: possession with purpose, defensive solidity, tactical flexibility, but within rigid positional roles. It had won Champions Leagues, it had delivered titles, but it wasn't designed for Kylian Mbappé. And as the season ended, as Madrid finished second in La Liga and exited the Champions League in the semifinals, one question lingered in the boardroom at the Bernabéu. What if the problem wasn't just the position Mbappé played? What if it was the entire philosophy? What if they needed someone who could rebuild the system from the ground up? Someone who understood modern attacking football, positional fluidity, and how to maximize elite forwards without caging them? That question had an answer, and his name was about to change everything at Real Madrid. The summer of 2025 arrived with one question. Was this as good as it gets for Kylian Mbappé at Real Madrid? 6 months of struggle. 6 months of being told he didn't fit. But on May 25th, 2025, Real Madrid announced Xabi Alonso as their new head coach, a manager who'd built Leverkusen around positional fluidity and freedom for forwards to attack space, the kind of system that could finally unlock Mbappé. August 19th, 2025, opening day against Osasuna, Mbappé scored from the penalty spot. 1 goal, 1-0 win, a fresh start. 5 days later, the floodgates open. Real Oviedo 0, Real Madrid 3. Mbappé scored twice, 37th and 83rd minutes. Both from transition, attacking space behind defenders, doing what he does best, running at terrified defenses with the ball ahead of him. This was the Mbappé the world remembered, the World Cup final hat-trick scorer, the PSG demolition man. September 13th, away to Real Sociedad, Madrid went down to 10 men. The old Mbappé would have crumbled. This version adapted, dropped deeper, linked play. He scored one, assisted another. Madrid won 2-1 with 10 men. Then came the real test. September 16th, Champions League. Real Madrid versus Marseille. Mbappé's European ghost. The Anfield nightmare where pressure crushed him. Madrid went behind. Carvajal was sent off. Down to 10 men at home in the Champions League. Mbappé stepped up for a penalty. The Bernabéu held its breath. He buried it. Bottom corner. Minutes later, another penalty. Same pressure. He buried that one too. Madrid won 2-1. No wild celebration, just quiet confidence. The narrative was fracturing. September 20th, Espanyol. 1 goal. September 23rd, Levante. A brace in 3 minutes during a 4-1 win. The ruthless finishing was back. By late September, 10 goals across all competitions. Madrid top of La Liga with 8 straight wins. Then reality hit. September 27th, Atletico Madrid 5, Real Madrid 2. A defensive collapse. But here's what separated this Mbappé from the one under Ancelotti. He didn't spiral. October 4th, Villarreal. Mbappé sealed it in the 85th minute. 3-1 win. No panic. Just a player who'd learned bad matches happen. October 19th, Getafe away. 0-0 in the 81st minute. Mbappé found the breakthrough. 1 chance, 1 finish, 1-0. That goal sent Madrid top on 24 points, 2 clear of Barcelona, 8 wins, 1 loss through 9 matches, 10 La Liga goals, 2 assists. Champions League, 3 matches, 3 wins. The difference wasn't just tactical. Alonso's system gave him freedom, yes. But the real change was mental. Mbappé stopped trying to be Benzema. He started being himself again, running into channels, attacking space with unstoppable acceleration, finishing with confidence that only comes when doubt disappears. By late October 2025, Madrid sat first in La Liga, perfect in Europe, and Mbappé led them in goals. The player everyone said didn't fit was proving he'd always belonged. He just needed the system to understand him. But let's not pretend this is a finished story, because for all the progress, for all the goals and the tactical clarity and the perfect start under Alonso, there are still questions Mbappé and Madrid must answer. First, consistency. The transformation has been real, but it hasn't been linear. 10 goals in 9 La Liga matches sounds brilliant until you remember that 2 came against Oviedo, 2 against Levante, teams Madrid should dominate. What happens when the schedule tightens? When he faces Atletico's low block 3 times in a month? When Barcelona's high press forces him into uncomfortable spaces? The Atletico match in September exposed something. Madrid can still be carved open. They conceded 5 goals. The system that gives Mbappé freedom also leaves gaps in transition. And while he scored plenty going forward, defensive fragility remains a live issue. Second, the Champions League knockout test is still coming. Yes, he scored twice against Marseille in the group stage, but Marseille aren't Manchester City. They aren't Bayern Munich or Arsenal. The Anfield nightmare from 2024 still haunts him. The missed penalty, the 8 offsides, the invisible performance that became a meme. At Real Madrid, legends aren't built in group stages. They're forged in quarterfinals and semifinals, in hostile stadiums under unbearable pressure. Benzema delivered against Chelsea, against City, against PSG. Ronaldo owned the knockout rounds. Bale had his moments in finals. Mbappé hasn't had his yet, not in the white shirt. And until he does, the doubts will linger beneath every compliment. Third, durability. Mbappé's playing more minutes than ever before in a system that demands constant movement. Alonso's tactical freedom comes with a physical cost. More sprints, more recovery runs, more high-intensity actions per 90 minutes. Madrid's schedule is relentless. La Liga every week, Champions League, Copa del Rey, Club World Cup obligation. Can his body hold up across 60-plus matches? 1 hamstring pull in March, 1 fatigue injury in April, and suddenly the system built to unlock him becomes the system that broke him. Fourth, the ego question. Mbappé came to Madrid with Ballon d'Or ambitions. He's openly chased individual glory his entire career. But at Madrid, the spotlight is shared. Vinicius has his own claim. Bellingham too. Can Mbappé accept being part of a collective the way he never truly was at PSG? Or will individual ambition fracture the chemistry when the goals dry up? Finally, mental resilience. He spent 6 months being mocked, questioned, ridiculed. Those scars don't disappear after 10 good weeks. What happens at the first sign of struggle? When he goes 3 matches without scoring? When a penalty miss costs Madrid points in El Clasico? Will the confident version hold, or will the self-doubt creep back in? These aren't criticisms, they're realities. The transformation is undeniable, but transformation isn't completion. September form doesn't guarantee May glory. Football doesn't care about hot starts, it cares about how you finish. There's a moment in every great player's career where the narrative shifts. Not because the doubters were wrong, sometimes they were right at that specific moment, but because the player evolved beyond the criticism. Kylian Mbappé is living that moment right now. 6 months ago, he looked like a cautionary tale, a superstar who dominated a weaker league but couldn't handle La Liga's intensity, a pace merchant exposed when space disappeared, a player whose ego outgrew his tactical intelligence. Today, he looks like what he's always been, one of the most devastating forwards on the planet, finally playing in a system that understands him. The difference isn't just Alonso's tactics, though those matter. The difference is philosophical. Ancelotti tried to mold Mbappé into the role Madrid needed. Alonso rebuilt the role around the player Madrid had. That distinction is everything. You see it in his movement now. He doesn't just sprint anymore. He reads the game, maps the spaces defenders leave open, then explodes into them with acceleration that's terrorized defenses since he was 19. He's not just faster, he's smarter. You see it in his finishing. 10 La Liga goals through 9 matches, 2 assists, a conversion rate climbing back toward his PSG peak. But more than the numbers, there's confidence in every strike. The kind that only comes when doubt disappears. You see it in his resilience. After the Atletico humiliation, 5-2, defensive collapse, the kind of night that would have broken the early season Mbappé, he responded with goals against Villarreal and Getafe. No spiral, no panic, just a player who'd learned that bad matches happen and the only answer is to deliver next time. The data confirms what the eye test shows. Madrid, first in La Liga with 24 points, 2 clear of Barcelona. Champions League, perfect record through 3 matches. Mbappé, leading scorer across all competitions. But perhaps the most telling stat is this. When Mbappé scores or assists, Madrid almost never lose. He's not just contributing, he's tilting matches in moments that define seasons. And yet, the narrative has shifted so quietly you might have missed it. The same pundits who called him the worst Madrid signing in history after El Clasico now talk about him as if they always believed. He just needed the right system. Alonso's been brilliant for him. We always knew he'd come good. The revisionism would be funny if it wasn't so predictable. But Mbappé hasn't responded with words. He's responded the only way that matters, with goals, with performances, with results that make the criticism look foolish in retrospect. That's maturity. Not just as a player, but as a person. The Mbappé of 2 years ago might have fired back on social media, might have let criticism poison his performances. This version stays silent, keeps working, and lets the football speak. There's a wisdom there that wasn't present before. Madrid demands that evolution from every player. The pressure, the history, the expectations. They either break you or forge you into something better. Mbappé is choosing to be forged. Of course, the story isn't finished. There will be bad matches ahead, tactical challenges, moments of doubt. The Champions League knockouts will provide the ultimate test. May will determine whether this hot start becomes a trophy-laden season or just another almost. But here's what's different now. There's a foundation, a system that works. A version of Mbappé who's learned that adapting isn't weakness, it's evolution. Because the greatest players aren't the ones who refuse to change. They're the ones who evolve without losing their essence. Cristiano became a penalty box predator. Benzema transformed into a false nine maestro. Modric shifted from attacker to deep-lying controller. Evolution is the price of immortality at Real Madrid, and Mbappé is paying it. So to the pundits who wrote him off after Anfield, who called him a flop after El Clasico, who questioned whether he'd ever belong at the Bernabéu, he's not responding with arrogance. He's responding with evolution, with 10 goals in 9 matches, with Champions League penalties buried under pressure, with the kind of performances that don't need defense because they speak for themselves. The problem was never that Kylian Mbappé couldn't succeed at Real Madrid. The problem was that Real Madrid hadn't figured out how to succeed with Kylian Mbappé. Now they have, and the rest of Europe has to deal with the consequences. Because when you give one of the world's most dangerous forwards the freedom to be himself within a system built for his strengths, you don't just get good football, you get something unstoppable. The critics are quiet now, not because they've admitted they were wrong, they'll never do that, but because the evidence is overwhelming. Mbappé isn't just fitting in anymore, he's dominating. He's not just scoring goals, he's defining games. He's not just wearing the white shirt, he's starting to own it. And that transformation, that evolution from doubt to dominance, from misfit to maestro, that's how you silence arrogant pundits. Not with words, with results, one goal at a time.